Hi everyone, today we are going to make a fall swag. You're going to need the 21-inch mesh. We're going to start by putting the base down. Now this particular mesh I got from Sims, and I like the Sims mesh better because it's not as weak and flimsy as Hobby Lobby. Also, Craft Outlet has some really good jute mesh to work with. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to straighten my pencils on my rail form. And for this particular form, we are going to start in the middle. It sounds crazy to start in the middle, but that's where we're going to start. And we'll be using 10-inch, well, excuse me, I want to use 12-inch poofs for this one. I like 12-inch poofs a little bit better, so we're going to use 12-inch poofs to do this one. You're going to start in front of you, and you'll secure your mesh really tight, and I wrap it a couple times. Cut off all the uglies. And then you are going to cross over to this side. Don't pull it too hard that this comes this way. You kind of want it to stand up straight and cross over to this side. Okay? Then you're going to secure it. And then you're going to start your poof. Now, like I said, I'll be using 12-inch poofs. I like the 12-inch poofs for this because it has a little bit fuller look to it, and it goes further across the rail. Deal with that. So when you get down to this point, to the end, okay, you're going to use a 15-inch poof. So what you're going to do with that 15-inch poof is you will gather up your mesh, and here's your 15 inches. Now you want to roll your mesh back, okay? And I know that's kind of hard to see. Let me get that out of the way. Okay, you're going to want to roll your mesh back for this poof. Okay? And then you're going to secure it down. Okay, now you want to cross over to the other side. When you cross over to the other side, bring your mesh back down to normal, how you were laying your poofs. And then what you're going to do, once again, don't pull it too hard. You don't want to pull it too hard that this is twisting in. Pull it tight enough that that's standing up straight. And then you are going to secure that down. Okay? Now you're going to make another 15-inch poof. This poof, you're going to do the normal way with the grain, with the way you've got your mesh rolled. and then you'll lay it in there. Then we're going to continue down the rail form using 12-inch poofs again. Notice how I'm twisting my ties just a couple of times. Make sure that when you twist your ties that you're doing it tightly. Because you want to make sure everything is secure in your form. See how I'm pulling on them tightly? But be careful, there's a balance. Don't go too tight that you rip the ties off. If you do, just add a pipe cleaner instead. Okay, so once again, we're down at the end. Okay, we're going to do a 15-inch poof again. Just like we did last time, you're going to gather it and then you're going to flip it over. Okay, let me get my mesh out of the way so you can see. You're going to flip it over. And then you're going to secure it in your tie. Then we're going to cross over. Kind of want to twist your mesh to where it goes back to the right way. So when you cross over, okay, once again, be careful. You don't want this too tight. You don't want to pull. You don't want this to roll in, but you want it tight enough so it'll stay straight. What this does later on doing this, it is going to prevent your mesh from rolling out when you put the bow on, because the bow and stuff will cause weight and cause this to roll out. You don't want that later on, so this will prevent it. So we're going to do another 15-inch poof. Now, I do not open my ties back up. The reason I don't open my ties back up is because as I do this, I want them to disappear. Plus, it keeps my ribbon and everything from going down into the wreath later on. It makes it so my ribbon will sit up higher above the mesh. So we got a couple of 12-inch poofs left to go here. And then this is the last one. Okay, then what you're going to do is you're just going to simply cut your mesh off as close as possible to your tie. These are actually really good scissors, and I found out here recently you can get them at Walmart. They're titanium, and they cut like butter. I love them. I use them to cut my ribbon and everything. These are cloths, but they have a different kind at Walmart. Just look for titanium scissors. Okay, so now we're going to poof this out a little bit. Now on the end, you kind of want your poofs to overlap a little bit, so kind of tuck them in. And then you don't want to pull these out too much, because you want them to blend in with the rest of your wreath. Or excuse me, swag. Okay. As you can see, the 12-inch poofs, just like I like, they do look fuller. They even out with the end of the swag. Okay, so we're going to set this aside. And the next thing we're going to do is that we are going to add some 10-inch mesh. Now for this one, I chose orange. I know it's a bright orange and you would think it's a Halloween orange, but the color ribbons that I've chose are kind of going to dull it out a little bit. I like some of the brighter colors of fall. So let's set this out of the way so I can cut my mesh. The method that I use is that I have this board. This is a quilter's board. You can get it at Walmart. It's about $10. There's other people that have different ways of cutting the mesh. It's kind of going to be your personal choice. Over to my right, you'll see me flick it off. I have a huge plastic tote that I use to catch it in. All the methods that I developed, I did because I've got a bad back. So when I'm cutting these, I'm going to cut these 12 inches. And you're going to need 11 of them. Okay, so once you get your 11 pieces cut, we're going to start adding them to our form. Now we're going to do this a little bit different than what some people normally do. I kind of like the phrase, especially when doing a fall wreath. I think it gives it a little bit of personality, so I'm not going to really care if fraying sticks out on this. I think it kind of gives it a little hay effect. But what you're going to do is see how it rolls. You want to go flat with it. We kind of want it to go flat. So just like you would do a normal ruffle, you're going to squinch it up, and then we're going to lay it in the wreath. Once again, if it's rolled, you don't want to do it this way. You don't want to unroll it that way because then it'll roll up and it'll make it hard for your ribbon to lay. You want to flip it over. And see how it frays? If you don't like it, you know, you can just pull it out. It doesn't matter, like I said. I think with a fall wreath, it gives it a little something. It makes it kind of look like straw. And see, I think once the orange is up next to the tan, it's not too orange. We just have a few more pieces to go, and then our base will be complete. And make sure that when you add these in, that you are pulling them down tight once again, okay? Because you're going to add other things, and if you don't pull them down tight, you're not going to have enough of the pencil left. So you want to make sure that you pull them down tightly. 3 more pieces to go. And see, I kind of push my mesh down in there with my thumb. So now we've got all of our ruffles added, got our base. We are ready to go. The next step is going to be making bows. Once you get done with your base, you can go on to the next segment of making bows. So welcome back. We're going to now work on the bows. I'm going to be using 26-inch gauge wire. What I like about the 26 gauge wire is that it is thinner. It's easier to bend it and twist it and tie it, and it doesn't bulk up your bow. It doesn't cause it to stack and make, you know, if you use a wire that's too thick, it won't stack as well, and it'll be kind of like bulky, and it's just hard to work with. You can buy this pre-cut. I choose to buy it like this. And what I do is we're going to be making 2 bows. And so I'm going to go ahead and cut all my wire. And I just like to go ahead and cut it the full length of my board. And that is approximately 22 inches. I like it longer than the pre-cut because it makes it easier to secure it, especially on a rail form. I think the wire needs to be a little bit longer. Alright. So because we're making 2 bows, and it's going to be a terry bow, I have cut 4 pieces of wire. So I'm going to set that aside, and we're going to start making our bow. Now, this is the older model Pro bow that does not have the new row. So if you have the older model, you're going to be using row C. If you have the newer model, you'll be using row D. What you're going to do is you're going to pull your ribbon out. I'm going to go ahead and put a dovetail on it. I'm going to measure up to row B to start. I'm going to pinch my ribbon down. Now keep in mind, the good side of the ribbon is away from you. Always the good side of the ribbon is pointing away from you. Once you get that pinched down, take your wire and then you will securely twist your wire around your ribbon. Once you do that, hold it against your peg, twist your ribbon, your wire up, kind of leave this hanging out so you can grab it later on. Down here, there is a nail on your Pro bow. You want to twist your wire around that, and then what's left on this one, you just tuck underneath your Pro bow. Okay? And now we're going to start our bow. Now, like I said, the good side of your ribbon is always facing away from you. Now, after you do that one loop, you'll come back and you want to pinch this down, and you're going to give it a twist so that the good side of your ribbon is facing out. Tuck your tail out of your way and then put it around the loop. Once again, come back, twist. You're going to pinch down and then twist so that the good side of the ribbon is facing away from you. Now at this point, we're going to add our second piece of wire. Now your second piece of wire is your helper wire. It's going to be the one that actually helps us make the bow. So in between your ribbon, you want to slide this piece of wire in. You want to pull it to the front of your bow. Pull it here to the front of your bow. It'll slide right in there to the front here. And then you will securely tie that. Now make sure that when you do that, it's in the center. Otherwise you'll be lopsided as you make your bow. Now once you do that, you'll come over here. Once again, we started on row B, so we're just going to cut this one on a dovetail on row B. Now we're going to alternate our ribbon between a 1.5 and 2.5 ribbon. Now what I do is I stack them up so that when I go to make my next bow, I'm ready. Gonna go ahead and dovetail the ribbon. Now this one, once again, I'm gonna start at row B. Gonna pinch your ribbon down, put it in your helper, and then what you're going to do is you're going to securely tie that in there and do it as tight as possible. If you don't do this as tight as possible, your bow will be too bunchy when you go to finish it. Take your tail, put it out of the way, and then start making your loop. When you come back around with your loop, pinch the ribbon down. Gonna twist. Now make sure your ribbon at this point is nice. And what I mean by nice, you want it to be nice and flat and facing the right way going into your other loop. Then you're gonna pull that tight. You'll come back, you'll do another pinch and twist, and then you're going to secure that ribbon. And like I said, keep making sure that you secure it tightly as possible. And then we're going to dovetail at row B again. And that will be the last time that we dovetail on row B. Now we'll start using row C. Now I'm going to use a 1.5. Like I said, I'm going to alternate between 1.5, 2.5, 1.5, 2.5, 1.5, and my last one's going to be 2.5. Now this one we're going to start on row C. We're going to use row C as our guideline. Once again, you're going to pinch, put your ribbon in there, tie it down securely, get your tail out of the way, and make your loop. You're going to pinch it down. You're going to twist. Make sure that right here when you do this, you don't want this to be all twisted up. So make sure when you do your twist, the pinch has to be good so that this will lay nicely coming out into your loop. You're going to come back, pinch and twist. Always make sure that the good side of your ribbon is facing away from you. And then we're going to pull that tight. And then we're going to cut our dovetail and set it out of the way. Now, if you'll notice from the base that we did, the ribbon that I picked out complements the base, pulls the colors of the base into our bow. Pinch, secure it in there tight. Get your tail out of the way, and then start your loops. Pinch it in, twist, make your loop, twist again, do your pinch and twist. Now what I like to do is I like to kind of push this in a little bit with my thumb. And the reason I like to do that is, once again, I'm trying to avoid it when I finish from bunching up, because if it bunches up, you'll end up with a twisted bow that won't look right. And once again, we're going to dovetail at row C. Ooh, I think last time I used that ribbon, I did something with some glitter. Once again, going back to a 1.5 ribbon. Do your dovetail first. Aim it up to row C and then do your pinch. Get your tail out of the way. Start your loop. Do your pinch. Twist. Loop. Get your twist going on. Now, we're ready to take our bow off. So you're going to grab your wire here and pull it out. Okay, now I like to double check, so I'll run my finger down and make sure that it's still not wrapped around my peg, because if it is, you'll have to redo it. So I just take my finger and I double check, make sure I still don't have any wrapped around my peg. You're going to get your wire from underneath here, unwrap it from the nail, and then what you're going to do is you're going to tie this securely. Now see how that goes in when I'm doing it? If you're not careful as you're making your bow and this ends up getting too wide, this is where I was talking about where it will bunch up. So you want to do that really tight and secure. Okay? Now what I like to do with the other helper wires, I like to wrap it again, just to make sure nothing's going to come apart. Now, I've got my two longer wires, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the two helper wires off, because I don't need those anymore, and they'll just get in the way when I go to put the bow on the swag. The other thing that I like to do before I remove my bow off of my... Let's clip that little wire, that's weird. Is I like to double check my tails. Sometimes you can't help it and they're too long, and I think this is a good way to double check whether or not my tails are too long. So what I'll do is, this one looks too long to me, is I'll come in here and I will dovetail it up and cut it a little bit shorter. Because what I like to do personally is I like for them to be just at the end of the peg and match up with my loop. I don't want them sticking out that far. So this one is a little bit long, so I'm going to give it a little trim too. Give it a little dovetail. Now this one is a little bit long, so I just want to trim it up a little bit. Not much. Fix it. These are a little bit long. Now to me, it's easier to do it this way than once you put it on the wreath, because it makes your bow look more consistent. Okay, then you're going to simply lift your bow off. Okay, and we are going to set that aside. And like I said, these are the brighter colors of fall. I like using the brighter colors of fall. Some people like using the browns, oranges. I like using the greens and the oranges and the burgundies. So we're going to set this bow aside. And we're going to make our second one real quick. And in this case, we're going to make them identical. So in front of me, as you can see, I've got my ribbon stacked up the way that I used it. And I'm going to go ahead and make this one a little bit quicker. If you need to, you can rewind the video and reference back to when I made the first one. Going to put it at row B, pinch. Now this part, the starting part, I will do slowly for you. It's a little bit difficult to see, and I'll try to make sure I keep my digits out of the way, my fingers, so you can see exactly what I'm doing. So I'm basically putting my wire in half and twisting this really good to secure my ribbon. Now, you want to go halfway down your peg. If you go up here, it's not going to look right. If you go down too far, it's not going to look right. So you want to go halfway and then twist your wire around the peg, and you want to do that pretty tight. Okay? Make sure that your little end piece you can grab. And then you're going to pull down. Hold your thumb on it because you don't want this moving. Okay? And then twist around your nail. Now this piece right here we're going to put underneath the board and get it out of the way. Okay? Now we're going to start making our loops. The good side of the ribbon always facing away from you. You're going to pinch down, twist. Make sure that your twist is in the center of the peg. Okay? Good side out. You're going to twist and pinch, or excuse me, pinch and twist. Now we're going to add our second wire. See if I can make sure I keep my fingers out of the way. Now when you add your second wire, you're going to feed it under the bow. See how it's under the bow? Okay? Then you're going to grab your two pieces together, even them out, and pull it to the front of the bow. You're put it right here where you're going to be doing your twisting. Okay? With your ribbon. And then you're going to tie that tight. And you want to tie that really tight, because remember, I told you how important that is, that if you don't tie this tight, when you finish, you're going to bunch your ribbon up and it's not going to look right. So now we can really start our bow. We can do the dovetail. I'm going to go ahead and fix this. Well, I got my scissors out. There we go. Now this time, as I use my ribbon, just my personal thing, I'm just going to go ahead. I've got two spool holders. So I'll just start setting my ribbon to the side here this time. Like I said, I'm going to do this one a little bit quicker. Start at row B. Pinch. Now this pinch is really important too, because if you don't pinch it right, it's going to be bulky and it will not sit right. Get your tail out of your way. Pinch again. And then twist. Make sure that your twist is in the center of your peg. As you do these terry bows, you'll get quicker at this. So for the first two, I cut them on row B. Now we'll start cutting them on row C, and using row C as our guideline. Ream it up with row C. Do your pinch. Make sure this is really tight and secure. Get your tail out of the way. Start your loop. And like I said, when I come around and I do my pinch and twist, I like to put my thumb on there and push against that to make sure that's tight against the peg. It will prevent your bunching later on. Pinch your ribbon up. twist. And like I said, I'm holding my thumb there to make sure that's good and secured tight. Can you believe that's only a 50-yard roll of ribbon? That thing's huge. Aim up for row C. Pinch, twist, secure, and then dovetail. Put our last piece of ribbon on. Now the reason I alternate between a 1.5 and a 2.5 ribbon, I think it makes it easier to see all of your ribbon that you put in the bow. I think that if you use all 2.5 ribbon, it's hard to see it all. Okay, so we're going to put our last ribbon on. Then after we get done with this and we tie it up, I'm going to show you how I fluff them out. Now for the Pro Bow, you can get a tool that's called a fluff box. I don't have one, and not everybody does. Now, the fluff box is something that you can make. You'll just have to go to probowthehand.com to see what a fluff box is exactly, but it weighs about 10 pounds. And with me having a bad back, having a fluff box is not really conducive to that. So I have had to make adjustments. Okay, so we got our last ribbon on. And there went my scissors. Cut my last tail, and then once again I'm going to double check before I take it off here and make sure that my tails aren't too long. Take your wire out. Like I say, I like to double check, so I just run my finger and make sure that I did get all the wire unwrapped. Then I'm going to grab my other wire out from underneath, unroll it off my nail, and then I'm going to pull this securely together. And once again, I'm going to take my two guide wires. I'm going to twist those in there again. And then I'm going to cut them off because I don't need them, and I just think they'll get in the way when securing the bow. Pull the peg out and lift up your bow. Now that we did that, let me get this out of the way real quick. Okay, So now we're going to attach the bows. We're going to use, we're not going to use these on this side. So I'm just going to tuck these in and get them out of the way. And due to technical difficulties, I had to unfluff the bow a few times, so if it looks a little bit odd. But what you're going to do is you're going to take your wire and you're going to feed it straight down through your mesh. Now, I don't want it sitting on top of I want it sitting beside it, kind of. So I'm going to flatten this out so I can flip it over and show you. Okay, so as you can see, I've got one wire on this side of the rail and one on that side of the rail. So I'm going to pull my bow in, and I'm going to make this really, really tight so my bow won't move. Okay? Then what I'm going to do with the extra wire is I'm going to attach it to the rail up here also. And then I'm going to pull it down here, because as you notice, this moved. So I want to make sure later on that that doesn't move. So I'm going to attach it to the rail down here also. Then with a little bit of wire that I had left over, I'm going to twist it around the work form. And then there's one bow. Now I got to come down here and I'm going to put the bow on the opposite side. Now in this case, I'm going to use, I'm going to have faux tails, so later on I will use this, so I just want to keep it straight so I'll be able to get a hold of it. And we're going to do the same thing that we did up there. Going to feed my wire straight down through my mesh. Now, because I'm putting faux tails on, I kind of want to make sure that my bow center is pretty close to this. Let me flatten that out. I'll flip it over. So once again, I'm going to tie that down really good. I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to go up here to this rail. I'll come down to the bottom one. And then it's secured. Now you might have a fluff box, so you know that's just how I attach bows because I don't have a fluff box. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to fluff my bow out really quick. Like I said, this has been fluffed a couple times, had a couple of technical difficulties, so this won't take a second. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to alternate. I kind of like my first ones that I undo to make a kind of a plus sign, as you can see that. And then I'll alternate a tail loop. I'm going to go back and round my ribbon up real nice. The other thing that I'm looking for too when I fluffing my bow out is I don't want two of the same ribbons too close together. So I'll kind of pull some of those apart also. So now we're going to fluff the other bow out. And once again, start from the bottom. That's how I like to do it. This ribbon's already been pulled on quite a bit because of the technical difficulties I had. These bows have actually, this is the third time these bows have been fluffed out. Now I like to kind of round my tails up too, so it kind of takes a nice shape. Probably taking me a little bit longer to fiddle with this because how many times like I said, it got flattened back out and undone quite a few times. So okay, so there we have our 2 bows. I'm not going to add the faux tail right now because it'll just get in the way as we work on our swag the rest of the way. So now it's time to start adding our ribbon. This is the ribbon that I have chosen. This is a 4-inch ribbon. I like 4-inch ribbon because I'm not going to put a sign on here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I dovetail my ribbon first. I'm going to roll a little bit off the roll here. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to come up to your tie over here. When you dovetail it, I kind of like to make it stick up just about over the ruffle and leave a little bit of mesh showing. Let me turn that so I can see it better too. So I want to go into my tie. It's kind of hard to see because of the bow, but I want to go into my tie and kind of get a measurement. And then I'm going to pinch that together because 4-inch ribbon, if you don't pinch it, it will just kind of like glob up and it will not look good. Need a little bit more there. And then you're going to secure that in. And then you're going to zigzag back and forth. Now how you zigzag, just remember your tail is going to come out here. So I'm going to you want to make sure that when you're putting your ribbon down that this isn't too loose and it's not too tight. So I will go ahead and set it down into your tie. Because if it's too tight, it won't lay. And if it's too loose, it'll just poof up too much. So you kind of want it to lay there nice. About something like that. I think I'll go down here instead. Now don't forget, hold your ribbon all the way down into your tie so that you can make sure it's going to lay nice before you secure it. Okay. So before you cut it, just double check. Make sure that's how you want your ribbon to lay. And then once again, because this is going to be the bottom on this side for me, I'm going to cut the tail, and I'm going to go ahead and dovetail. I'm going to cut it just a little bit longer than I did the other one, about the bottom length of the bow, because I kind of want, this is going to help balance out my bow a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to add a couple of what's become to known as Jackie bows. So with 4-inch ribbon, it's a little bit different how we're going to do these. With 4-inch ribbon, we're going to cut these 24 inches. And there is 4 spots that we're going to need them, so we're going to need 4 of them. So to make sure that my bows really pop up, I'm going to add another piece of ribbon with this one. I'm going to add this plain tan to give this a different look. Now if you want to, you can add it down the center. I'll tell you what, I'll show you. I'll add it down the center so we can, because we have other orange ribbon that we're going to add, so I'll just go ahead and add it down the center. Now you could have done it at the same time that you put your ribbon down there. I'm just backtracking a little bit, and that won't take but a second. And you don't even have to open the tie to add this in. And if you want to, you can, but just you can add it in on top. Just make sure you do the same thing that you did before if you're wanting to add this second ribbon. I'm going to undo that one. That one doesn't have much tie left. And we still have other things that we're going to add. I love the tans and the oranges. And my new favorites become the burgundy, maroon colors of fall. Once again, we're going to dovetail this one off pretty long, so it'll kind of balance out the bow. Okay, so we're going to add this ribbon with it, so we'll also need 4 of these pieces, 24 inches long. I like my little bucket that I have over here. It helps me keep my workspace uncluttered. Okay, so what we're going to do, since we're using two ribbons, and like I said, this one's 4-inch, this one's 2.5 inch that I'm using, and we've cut these 24 inches long. You're going to put them together, and then you're going to fold them in half. Make sure that you kind of center up your 2.5 inch ribbon. Okay, then you're going to flip it over, and then you're going to make a figure 8 out of it. I always double check to make sure I fold it like this, to make sure that it's even, and then I pinch it up, especially when I'm using the 4.5 inch ribbon, and I double check, and then that way when I pinch it up I've got a nice bow. So we're going to put each one of these in these ties, and no, I'm not opening the ties back up either. Like I said, fold it over, make sure it's centered up. Ooh, there went my scissors. That would not have felt good on my toe. Even that up, flip it over. I kind of do that to, and then make my fingers meet. That kind of lets me know where middle is, but I still like to double check, make sure it is even before I pinch it up. So the one thing I like about these bigger bows, especially when you're not using a sign or something, they're really pretty to use to occupy more space. So right now we have a lot of the orange and the tan, but we haven't pulled very many colors from our bow into our wreath. We're going to use our other ribbons to do that. So that's what we have so far. So what I'm going to do is I count how many ties I have left that I need to fill. So on this side I have 3 left that I need to fill. On this side I have 2 left that I need to fill. So that's 5 different ribbons that I need to fill this. So what I'm going to do is we need to pull more of the green into it and more of the burgundy back into it, because we have lots of orange already. So I'm going to use this green, and I'm going to cut 3 14-inch pieces of it. And then with the green, I'm going to use the chevron, which is a huge roll and hard to put on my peg holder. We're going to cut 3 14-inch pieces of that. And then at this point, I just need 2 more ribbons. I still think we need a little bit more of the burgundy, so we're going to use the plaid, burgundy plaid. And we just need 2 of these. And then we're going to use 2 of the smaller green, because we have enough tan and red. So we need to bring other colors into this. So we just need 2 of those. Get my little catch box. Dovetails on my ribbon. Okay. So there's only 3 over here, so since I only did 2 of these, I'm going to put this in the center. And one of these on either side. You notice I'm just leaving them laying there for right now. I'll come back and adjust them as soon as I get them on. So I'm going to put this one down here because it's kind of across from that one. I'm going to spread that one out. I'm going to put this one up here because it's kind of, that way my ribbon's kind of not touching. I try not to let my same ribbons together. So this one I'm going to kind of 3-star it. We'll open it up because there's so much open space there. This one doesn't have as much open space because of the bow and this bow. So I'm going to leave it sticking out this way. Now this one, once again, because of the bow, there's not much open space, so I'm just going to open it up. So over here on this side, there's not that much open space, so I'm just going to open these up. And this is what we have so far. So we've got our ribbon on. So I think that for this one I have picked out some sunflowers that I'd like to put on this, and I have some flex tube that I want to add. The one thing I like about flex tube, particularly when it comes to fall, they have what's called jute flex tube now. And thank you. The jute flex tube kind of, you know, looks like hay. You can get it in several different colors. I've kind of pretty much so fell in love with the jute flex tube because it's a truer color. I used quite a bit of the yellow this past summer. So these are the flowers that we're going to use. I didn't want to get big ones because I'm going to use them here in the center of my bow. So I didn't want to get them too big. Now what I'm going to do, because I want the green, I'm going to push that up, and then I'm going to cut the stem off. I'd say about 2 inches down from the head. So we're going to need 4 of those. Like I said, push your leaves up about 2 inches down. Now, if you have a pick machine, you can use a pick machine to add these. I don't have one, so I'm going to show you how to do it without one. And just kind of make sure, too, with your flowers that you go and you kind of fix them, because they rotate around. See, the head rotates around, and see how quickly I've made that fuller just by spinning the flower around. See how that one kind of like, and then it just kind of spins around. So it just kind of fills out. I think I want a little bit more green there than what the leaves are going to give me. So because I want a little bit more green, I'm going to add a little bit of flex tube down my and I'm going to kind of make a bow out of it. Now these are 24 inches, so I'm going to measure 24, and then I'm going to loop it together. And I think, let's do it twice. It needs, like I said, it needs a little bit more of the green on top. And I'm going to undo the tie, because we're getting ready to end the sunflower, so you want to undo the tie. Let's add this in here. Make sure you pull that down really tight. Okay, so this is the bottom. Of our swag. So you want to make sure that when you add your sunflowers, make sure that you point your stem toward the bottom, because we're gonna make it like we're gonna make a hook out of this kind of. So lay your flower in there, okay, and then tie it in there secure. Now what you're going to do is you're going to bend your flower up and take this part of the stem and fold it back. You're going to hook it around the remainder of your tinsel tie. Okay? I'm going to leave that attached. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to hold that. That's my marker. That's how long I want it. But still, I want this 24 inches. So I'm going to measure my 24 inches holding that, and I'm going to make my loop. Okay? Now I'm going to make another loop and another loop like that. Once again, don't forget we're adding our sunflower, so this time I am going to untie this. I'm going to lay my flex tube in there, tie that down really tight. Then with your flower, this is the bottom, so you want to make sure that the stem is pointed toward the bottom. You're going to tie that in there, and I'll do it a little bit different this time. So this end you're going to hook up over, you're going to hook that up over your tie. See how you're making a hook so this won't come out? And then you're simply just going to bend your flower up so it sits up straight. So that's what I do. And like I said, if you do not have a pick machine, that's an alternative to it, to what you can do to add flowers. So once again, we're going to come down here. I'm going to measure, that's my guideline, hold it down in there. And then I want this 24 inches, so there's my 24 inch mark. I'm going to loop it around. Create my first loop. Then we're going to loop it again. Loop it again. And then we're going to set it down in there. Now this one, the tie is a little bit longer, so I won't have to undo it. You just have to just kind of, you know, decide whether or not you're going to need to do it. Don't forget, this is the bottom, so I'm going to point my stem that way. And this stem is actually a little bit long, so I'm going to cut a little bit off of this. So I'm going to point my stem down that way. I'm going to tie my ties, and then I'm going to make my hook. I'm going to bend my stem up, and then I'm going to bend my flower. We got one more flower to add, so we're going to zig back this way, and then once again I'm going to make sure that's how long I want it first. Then I'm going to know that's my mark going down into my center of my bow. I'm going to measure 24 inches. I'm going to make your loops. This tie is a little bit short, so I'm going to undo it. Pull it real tight. My stem's a little bit long, so I'm going to cut it off. Don't forget, this is your bottom. Bend it up. Make your hook. And then bend your flower. Okay, so I'm going to just cut this end of my flex tube off. So this is what we have so far. So I've got all my flowers on, so let me fluff my bow up here a little bit. Just kind of take a little bit of a beating with all the back and forth. And I'm going to fluff my other bow up. Because at this point we're kind of through beating on it. So I still don't quite have all the colors that I want in here, and it still isn't quite as full as what I like. Now some people don't like to add as much ribbon, so that's kind of why I'm showing you this is what we have at this point. I want a little bit more fullness. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit more ribbon. I'm going to do that in the form of just doing a few Jackie bows in here, just to fill the gaps. I'm also going to add a little bit more flex tube, but of a different color, just to give it contrast and to pull a little bit more tan to my outside. There's quite a bit of orange, but I need just a little bit of tan to my outside. So I'm going to use some tan jute flex tube. And I'm not going to cut this as long as I normally do. I'm only going to cut these 22 inches. And don't pull on your flex tube when you cut it, because then it will be shorter than what you really want. So I just kind of let mine lay there. So there's 5 pieces of that. That's all we're going to need. And see, we had 2 of the burgundy. So the burgundy ones, the thicker ones that I'm going to do, we're going to cut these 20 inches. When it's 2.5 inch ribbon, I cut them 20 inches. So the chevron ribbon, because I still think we need the burst of the common colors. There's 3 of those. I'm going to cut those a little bit shorter than what I cut my 2.5 inch ribbon, because I don't want them to stand out as much, but I want them there. So I'm going to cut those 16 inches. And we'll need 3 of those. Now you notice with this one I used the top ribbon, but with this one I used the bottom ribbon. I did that because I felt like I needed more of the burgundy. Not too much more, because burgundy can be overpowering, but I needed more of it. So what I want to do is I want to add my flex tube first. Now you have 1 of 2 ways that you can add it. You can add it like this, or you can loop it. In this particular case, I'm just going to fold it in half. I kind of like the look of this hanging out, especially on a fall leaf, on a fall wreath, excuse me. So I'm going to tie my flex tube in there first. And then I'm going to do the little Jackie bow. And I really appreciate everybody that started calling that the Jackie bow. That really made my day. So we're going to add the flex tube first. And I kind of like to make sure, see how these are sticking out, that this and kind of like all goes the same way so I don't have the open side all together. Put this bow in. Like I said, this one I wanted a little bit bigger because it needed more of the burgundy. Didn't want to make those too big. Pull my flex tube out a little bit. Make your little Jackie bow. I don't like all my bows to face the same direction. I don't like them to be like unison, so let me turn these a little bit. Let me spread this ribbon apart a little bit too. Spread that out. We're going to come over to this side. Going to add the flex tube. Now on this side, I want to make sure I really pull those apart. And we're going to put in our last bow. Now if you want to at this point, you can cut these out, but I'm going to leave them. I like how they look in the fall wreath. So this is what we have. So now we're done with our wreath. We are ready to add our faux tail. So I'm going to fix my bow up here. And then we're going to go down to the bottom. If you ever lose track of the bottom, that's why I had to take these two pieces down here and leave them hanging out. That can always be your reference point to your top and bottom. So at this point, you kind of want to pick out the colors that you want sticking out of your tail. I think we definitely want the burgundies. I think we need a little bit more of this orange. So I don't want the tail hanging down too low, but I want enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure how long I want it hanging down. In my case, I've got this clear ruler, so I'm just going to kind of stick it in there. And I think I only want them to hang down 10 inches. So I'm going to cut my ribbon 20 inches long. Now I'm going to go ahead and dovetail these as I go. I also think that we have a lot of prints and patterns in here. I love the little pops of color. I think we have a lot of the green, so I'm not going to use the bigger green, but I do want to pull a little bit more tan down into the bottom. So I'm going to grab the tan 1.5. And you don't have to put all of the ribbons from your bow in your tail. That's up to you. That's going to be to your taste. I usually put 3 or 4. Because when with my tails, I want you to be able to see the ribbon too. Uh-oh. Yikes. My pin head came off. I always got to trip over the finish line just a little bit. And I'm putting my dovetails on as I go. Got 2 more, and then we're going to put our faux tail on. And just a little hint of green, don't want too much. I'm going to dovetail these together real quick. I have a garbage can over here to my right. I have garbage cans all over the place. So what I want to do is I kind of want to stack my ribbon. So I want to put the orange and the green together. And then I want to put the burgundy. And then I want to put the tan. And then you're just going to fold this in half. My little trick is I take my finger and I crunch it. And it's already pinched. All I have to do is take it and then add it to my tie. So once again, I said we've got the tie underneath here, and that's where we're going to put our faux tail at. Make sure you tie that down in there really secure because you're getting ready to pull on it and separate your tails out. And you may want your tails longer. Like I said, I didn't want mine that long on this one. I have done them longer. You just have to do it to however you feel like you want it, and then you're going to separate your ribbon out, and I'm going to alternate them. And I don't really mind if the bigger ribbons get covered up, just as long as they're sticking out and there's a hint of their color there. And then I'm going to round, in this case I want to round the tail down a little bit. And hopefully for the last time till I ship it out, I am fluffing my bow out. And there you have it. This is your fall swag. Little pops of color. You can use bigger flowers if you want to. There's all different kinds of things that you can do with this. I like to give mine dimension and texture and try to make it so it doesn't look so straight up and down. I hope that y'all enjoyed this. I hope that I did a good job teaching y'all how to do this. Thank y'all so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing each and every one of y'all when I get back from my back surgery. And I hope y'all really enjoyed this. Thank y'all so much.